Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first ever podcast on the EKN Radio Network, a brand new program with our EKN editorial staff members, Dave Cole and Rob Howden here with you. This is called the EKN Debrief. Again, a first of what we believe will be many different unique shows on the EKN Radio Network. Of course, David Cole joining me from the head offices of HMG Editorial in Grand Rapids, Michigan. David, great to have you on our first a podcast. It should be some fun, I think.
Yeah, it's something new and different. We've done this before previously, but this is a new avenue that we're going with the site that we've been doing for the last few years, and it's exciting time.
You know, it's funny. It's podcasts are something that a lot of people are doing right now, and you and I have talked about getting it going again. And I say again because we actually did one, I think it was about 12 years ago. I think we talked about maybe 2005, 2006. We used to do the happy hour with Howden. We'd fire things up. You, myself, Tim Blaney, who was the editor of Shifter Card Illustrated magazine at that point, Super Card Illustrated magazine. We would do podcasts from hotel restaurants, from hotel lobbies. We did one on the front straightaway at the Super Nationals at Sam Boyd Stadium one year. We've had some interesting places to do them back in the day.
Yeah, I think our first time we ever did it was down in Austin, Texas at the Stars of Karting finale in 2005.
In Austin?
In Austin, Texas, exactly. The airport track. It's no longer there.
That's right. What's it called again? Was it Black Rock or something like
Iron
that?
Iron Rock Raceway. And
right at the airport.
Right at the airport. So you land at the airport. It was awesome. You land at the airport and you look out your window as you're taxiing to the gate and you see the kart track. Yeah. It was one of the best locations for a racing facility.
So the podcast, obviously not new for David and I and the EKN crew. We've done many of them, and we laughed about the fact that the one we did at the Super Nationals on the front straight at Sam Boyd, I think we had Alan Rudolph as one of our guests for that podcast, that happy hour with Howden, and I believe, David, and you and I talked, I think Aiden Rudolph was just born at that point. Now, of course, we see him running national races around the country, but I think he was just a baby at that point.
Yeah, it had to have been 2006 because my Aiden was born in 2007. I wasn't able to attend that Super Nationals. So I believe It was 2006. We sat out there on the front straightaway with the lights. It was at night after, I think, the power of hour.
It was dark.
Hour of power, session that they had. We had Ron White, I believe, there, and then Alan Rudolph. And I believe maybe one other guest, but we've had this kind of show at different places. I mean, some of the funny ones were in hotel lobbies with just people walking by. Oh, hey, there's so and so. Let's bring them over. Let's talk to them.
That's right. That was good stuff.
It was kind of the first beginnings of podcasts, and it was something that was hard to do at the beginning. But now there's so many new advancements in technology that we can literally sit miles and miles apart and do this together.
True. Of course, I'm at home here in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. You're down in Grand Rapids. Just to fill people in, those of you who may be listening here, first off, thank you so much for downloading or tuning in. This is something that Dave and I have wanted to do for a long time. We're going to have a lot of fun with. This is our debrief. It's what we're going to call essentially a wrap-up, I guess, if you will, David, of what's going on in the sport. We're planning some other different approaches, different shows down the line, but it's going to kind of just be a way for us to talk about what's happening in the sport right now, bring people up to speed. And this particular episode 1, is brought to you by Russell Karting Specialties and Parolin. We do want to thank Jim Russell and the crew for jumping online with us. As a commercial bit, Jim told me, here's the deal. If you buy something online at russellkarting.com and put Sonoma 17 in the comments, you'll get 17% off your order if it's $100 or more. They've actually signed up to be our presenting sponsor for the EKN live broadcast from the SuperKarts USA Spring Nationals in Sonoma in just a couple of weeks, hence the Sonoma 17. Put that in the comments, 17% off an order from Russell Karting Specialties. So a pretty good way to kick off our first podcast here on the EKN Radio Network. So David, if we jump right into this thing, obviously the big news over the last couple of weeks is essentially the dissolution of the partnership between MaxSpeed and BRP Rotax. A big thing, a major announcement in terms of the Rotax program moving forward. Of course, you and I went from that, moved to the Challenge of the Americas finale with Andy Saisman and his amazing crew. Obviously, a lot of great Rotax racing there as well, but I'll let you bring it up. You add your thoughts to it, but the future of Rotax in the United States is really kind of up in the air right now. There's a lot of engines out there. What are your thoughts on how things are going to move forward?
Well, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen because right now we have Michel Boisclair, who's kind of being the temporary director for what's going on in the United States. Well, he's also the director in Canada. And he's one that's been involved in Rotax since the very beginning. I believe it was late 1999 and the early 2000s when Rotax actually came back with the FR 125 Max engine. And when it began, it was designed to be a club type engine. It wasn't designed to be raced at the national, international level. Well, you know how things happen in karting. It just evolved from there, and it's blown up, and it's worldwide, and it's been an awesome, amazing thing. Just now, we're just with this deal going on now. It's kind of a state of flux for long time and new Rotax customers. You know, the engine's not going to go away. We know that. I mean, BRP has been mass producing this engine for a long time, and we don't.
There's parts everywhere.
I don't see this engine going away anytime soon. It now just who is going to direct it here in the United States? That's what we don't know.
True. And the funny thing, you talk about the fact when it first came out, and it really was an amazing program. It was that club designed to be a club level engine. Service centers were able to just service the engine. There was no engine builders, right? They just serviced the engine. You brought it in. They did what BRP told them to do, service it. And the beauty of it was you were a club racer. You raced your club. You raced maybe a regional series. You qualified to go to the Grand Nationals, and I've attended many of those Grand Nationals and really enjoyed them as well. Just some great racing. And, of course, that the big prize at the end of the Grand Nationals was you were able to go then run at the grand finals, wherever it may be. Back in the day, it was the Canary Islands, it was Egypt, that kind of thing. And to see, you're right, it kind of developed. I think the couple of the series over in Europe, the Euro Challenge kind of changed everything. All of a sudden, people jumped on board. Rotax was getting some momentum. There were racers on the club level, and all of a sudden, people say, "Hey, we need to have a pro series," and that's just. It happens all the time. People jump on board. They want to go pro. They want a bigger stage to participate on. And I'm not going to say that was what was wrong with it, but it definitely morphed the program to the point where we had engine builders. We had everything was moving in the right direction, or at least not in the right direction. It was moving in its own direction. But David, as you said, I think really we're kind of in a state of flux because until we know who's going to pick up the ball and run with it. I think we're all kind of just sitting here second guessing what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much. I mean, it's really hard to describe what's going to happen with it because until we know if anybody wants to step up and promote this engine package and distribute it in the United States, we really don't know what's going to happen. But the progression of Rotax, it's just kind of what happens in motorsports. I mean, no matter what, people are going to have money to spend, and you could be a club guy and have $1,000 budget, or you could be somebody that had a successful career in what they do, and they can spend $100,000 a year on karting. It doesn't, But the thing about it is, it all depends on what you do on the racetrack. And
sure
so
enough,
with the Rotax package, we've seen that high dollar teams can race, or low budget teams can race just as well as the high dollar budget teams, and we get that in karting, and that's why karting is still the purest form of motorsports. But go ahead.
I just get David. Probably the biggest hole, or maybe the biggest unknown right now, is what's going to happen with the Florida Winter Tour. Bill Wright obviously did an amazing job with that program, grew it into essentially the destination series in North America. It was that kind of off-season deal. I didn't ever feel it really affected everything that happened for the rest of the season. It was this amazing kind of vacation series that brought people to sunny Florida from wherever, South America, Europe, Canada. And it was that big thing for a while. It was for many years, 10 plus years, it was the place to be. That's where you were going to be in the winter if you were going to prime yourself up for the off season. Now, with MaxSpeed essentially dissolving, we look forward to seeing who is going to fill that gap. Because someone's going to step in there, David, because people like to go to Florida in the winter. They want to get a chance to get on the racetrack and get tuning in. Rock's already there. The Rock Cup program was already obviously ultra successful this year in Florida. We'll see what happens. We're seeing grumblings online that potentially Supercarts USA might do something in Florida as well. I think that's really one of the factors we're going to look at right now. We don't know what's happening there, and that's really an unknown that I think in the next couple of weeks to a month, we're going to find out what's going to happen in Florida next year.
Well, the Florida Winter Tour, thankfully to Bill Wright, he developed a brand. It became a brand. It used to be a small little thing when it first started that was, a little bit of racers here and there having a good time. Like you said, a little destination thing. But now it's become a brand. It's become worldwide known thanks to, the promotion of Bill Wright. And then when MaxSpeed took it over, they continued that international campaign, bringing, some of the top Europeans still over to race, and the introduction of the Rock Cup coming in. They brought in some of their racers as well internationally too to race at the Winter Tour. This year was one of their biggest years, I think, with the Rock program. So I foresee the Rock program continuing in 2018 and probably beyond. It's a matter of, okay, what's going to join it, if anything.
Yeah, true enough. And that's, David, in bringing up Rock, that's one of the biggest interesting things that's happening right now. Not only are we talking about MaxSpeed going away and the Rotax kind of being in a state of flux, but all of a sudden now the other two engine manufacturers are stepping up to try to see if they can't take advantage of or fill a gap, fill a need, support drivers who may want to get out of what they have, as we have trade-in programs now being offered by both IAME and Rock, where you can trade in your Rotax and pick up another motor. It's definitely an odd time in the sport right now.
Well, it's just an easier way for them to bring in new customers. And really, it could be still some of the customers they've already had. It's just they could replace their Rotax engines for more IAME or Rock product. Sure. But I think the main goal is to say, hey, look, there's no national program for you right now with a Rotax engine. You can come race either IAME or Rock. Because we see right now with Rock adding Garrett Potter to their staff, they're going to be really aggressive over this season developing a program for 2018 to go across the country. Because right now they're kind of just have a little bit of cells here or there. Yeah. And I think they really want to be aggressive in going across the country.
You know what? Let's put that Rotax to bed now. That program with MaxSpeed. Let's actually talk about some actual Rotax racing, because you and I were able to get back from another awesome weekend at the Challenge of the Americas. The finale was fun. We were up at Sonoma, Sim Raceway, Performance Karting Center. It was a great year for the program. Always awesome racers there too, and to see some of these kids that have worked their way up through the ranks, it's really cool to see. We look back at when guys like Kellen Ritter and Christian Brooks and Bryce Choker were running in those junior categories, even back into the mini categories. So to be able to watch them kind of develop through the program has been good. Now, let's have a look back at the Challenge of the Americas finale, David. That was it was a great year, but a fun weekend in Sonoma.
Well, yeah, anytime you're at a Challenge of the Americas race, you're going to have a good time.
True.
It doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's dry. Thankfully, the last few years it's been pretty dry, but we had a bit of wet weather in Sonoma. Thursday, the paddock got hit pretty hard, but everybody was able to be uninjured and keep going on through the weekend. But anytime you go to the Challenge race and Andy Staysman, it's just an amazing program to be part of, and all the staff that he has there.
And there's no doubt about it. He's assembled a quality team, if not the best crew in the sport. They do a fantastic job top to bottom. David, one of the things for me was the fact, like you said, you mentioned the weather. And, of course, it was wet. It rained all day on Friday for practice. But Saturday it rained in the morning, stopped raining, and you and I just sat back and waited to see which main event it was going to be where the dries were going to be better than the rains. And it looked like it was going to be Junior Max, but it ended up not being Junior Max, because it was so wild to see some of the local guys who know the racetrack, who know how smooth Sonoma is, and the fact that, as Mamo Gidley told us when he came in to say hello, you could probably drive around that track for 10 laps in a full dry using rain tires, and you're not going to burn them down as much. At least not going to fall apart. So in that junior race, it was those local guys who stayed on the reins when everybody up front went on the slicks, and they dominated. I was so blown away. Even the track looked so dry, except for maybe down in tic-tac-toe and the braking zone into 7. Otherwise, I would have thought slicks were a no-brainer, but we were wrong.
Well, that's where local knowledge prevails. Certain tracks dictate to that. The track handles. I mean, you look at Newcastle, the way the rubber lays down, it changes the track throughout the day from the beginning to the middle to the end. So, the Cameron karting guys there and a few others that call Sonoma home, they know the track's not going to have the grip level, especially as cold as it was. I mean, the sun was out a little bit, yeah, but it wasn't heating up the racetrack and drying it up as much as we thought it would be. And that was a key part into their success in the junior race, because we saw a lot of the big names go to the dry Mojo tires, and it ended up being the wet Mojo tires that actually had the more grip.
Let's talk about the champions. Let's recap the champions that were able to get out of that event and that series this year with championship titles.
Well, the senior category always comes down to the wire. We see that year in and year out. And with the Christian Brooks coming in as the defending champion, he obviously had the target on his back. But two wins, and towards the end of the season, he was able to put himself at the top of the standings, but at the end of the year.
I find it very interesting, the battle that kind of developed in the junior class as well between Jack Crawford and Hannah Greenmeyer. Hannah really stepped up her game. Jack's a known entity. Obviously, he's won titles before, and even in his rookie year in the junior category, they just had a really good battle throughout the entire season.
Well, Hannah's a second-year junior driver. Jack was his first rookie year, but as you said, he's had a number of success at this program and throughout the country. And so we knew these were going to be two of the top drivers in the junior category. And Hannah continues to develop as a driver every weekend. And the last round, we finally got to see her get that elusive victory that she's been searching for at the program. And while she got the win, it did put her a little bit short in the championship, and Crawford was able to prevail and become a first-time Team USA member.
Moving into the Masters category, there are obviously a lot of guys with a lot of talent in that program. Paul Bonilla is very fast. We saw David Pergandi step up to another level here this year. Wallace was fast as well. He was able to have a couple of really good runs. But, man, Billy Cleveland, you got to be kidding me. 6 straight wins this year. He just dominated.
Well, the guy works. He's a workhorse. I mean, we see it every weekend at the racetrack. The guy is just 100% focused on being the best he possibly can, and working under the RPG tent in Phoenix as part of our on-track program. Talking with him, he's very dedicated. I mean, he's got so much dedication to just his own program. It's unbelievable. I mean, some of these young drivers need to look at Billy as a type of role model and be like, you know what, I want to drive myself to be just like Billy in terms of work effort and the talent that he shows on and off the track, because Billy, he wrenches on his own stuff too. I mean, he's a longtime veteran of the sport, and there's no doubt. I mean, 6 wins is an unbelievable mark to set, but it wasn't easy, and he put in the hard work.
I agree. You know what? And you're right. As a role model, a guy with that kind of dedication, you let a young kid look at him and say, yeah, that's what I need to emulate. That's you're going to find success if you do that. Let's wrap it up, DC, with micro and mini. We didn't get the fields we were hoping for this year, but still some really good battles in the micro category. Sebastian Mulder obviously having a pretty good run and a pretty good year.
Yeah, the Bennick chassis is really developed as the go-to almost in these cadet level classes, and we saw Sebastian Mulder and Parker DeLong both aboard a Bennick. Those two went back and forth all year long, actually entering Sonoma tied in the point standings, and Sebastian just was able to put himself at the front of the field all weekend long and pull off the championship this year.
And in the mini category, it was consistency. It was six starts, 6 finishes for Jack Armstrong. He was able to get the win.
Yep, the championship for the Colorado driver. And like you were saying, we didn't quite get the numbers that we wanted to see in Mini Max. Diego LaRocque ended up not being able to go to the finale. He was the shoe-in for the championship. Sure. But Jack Armstrong was able to prevail with his absence.
Well, and I think all of us are kind of wondering what Andy Seisman has planned for the future. He obviously made a statement after MaxSpeed announced the fact that we're no longer working with BRP Rotax. We're all kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with Rotax. And I think Andy's kind of sitting back in terms of what the future of this program is going to be. What are we going to see in terms of the Challenge of the Americas in 2018? They put in 10 years. Any idea right now, your thoughts at least on what the future holds for the challenge?
Well, I think anything he does, it's going to be successful. Andy, like I said earlier, the staff he puts together and the way he develops his program, it's very professional, but it's also that it has that fun factor. It has that relaxed atmosphere where you can go from pit to pit, even though we're all still in our enclosed tents. Yeah. You still have a lot of the people have began back in 2008 with the Challenge of the Americas and have been there for the last 10 seasons. So whatever he decides, I think it'll be successful. I really don't know which way he's going to go. People are assuming he's only going to go one way because that's the way to go. But I think we won't know maybe in the near future, but we'll know probably by the time the summer months hit.
Yeah, Dave, my opinion on it is this, and I told it to Andy when we were at the races. I said, the engine on the side of the kart really isn't his brand. His brand is the Challenge of the Americas. You talked about the Florida Winter Tour being a brand. It's the same with the Challenge of the Americas. It's Andy's program. It's his staff. It's the atmosphere. It's the culture in that paddock that really is what makes the Challenge of Americas what it is. Whatever the engine ends up being, if he elects to go forward and continue with the program, whatever that engine may be, it's still going to have that same culture, that same paddock feel, that same atmosphere. So I think whatever Andy decides to do, he's going to be a success at it because he puts together the right team and presents and provides that experience that people are looking for.
Well, and I think it also depends on what happens with the Florida Winter Tour, because a lot of what he did, he worked with Bill right from the beginning, made sure those two were on the same page with one another, just so that way, each coast has their own programs, but yet you could do both at the same time if you wanted to. So I think it has to do a lot with what the Winter Tour ends up being. But as we've seen throughout the last couple of years, a lot of more programs are doing more winter races. So the schedule is really getting flooded with a lot of races, and it's good for the race teams, but for some people's budget, it just doesn't work. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
It's finding the happy medium. And so I think, he's obviously going to bring in a lot of the information and review it and take his time and make sure he goes the right path.
All right, let's put that to bed as well. Let's move forward here as, again, we are in our first ever broadcast of the EKN Debrief, the first podcast of the EKN Radio Network. Lots more to come. This particular podcast brought to you by Russell Karting Specialties. Moving up the coast, David, to the Can-Am Karting Challenge, Mike Rollison's program. We talk about the future, what happened with Rotax. Rollison obviously making a move with the Can-Am Karting Challenge as he brings the Mini and the Micro Swift class, the SCUSA categories into the Can-Am. He's obviously worked with SCUSA from the get-go, having the Superkart USA shifter kart categories, but for the most part, it was a Rotax series. Mike, who and the whole Can-Am gets set to start, I think, end of May, 20th, 21st, I think, at Tri-Cities in Richland, Washington. It should be interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, Mike has been doing a lot of Superkart USA racing with his team, the Rollison Performance Group. But this is, I think, probably a good move for him in terms of trying to leverage some of the momentum that's happening on the West Coast. Well,
again, Mike's been with the Rotax program since almost the beginning as well, too. He's a 2006 Grand National champion. He's developed a lot of the champions that have gone through the program. So I think he wants to keep, he wanted to keep the loyalty with the Rotax program, but he's open-minded. He's very open-minded. He just wants racers to come and have a good time. And that's kind of what his program has been the last couple of years. I don't care what you have, come to our race and race. We'll find a place for you. And with the many options that he has with Rotax, IAME, Briggs, the stock Honda program, and the Tag Open programs, classes that he's hosted last year and this year as well. There's a place for somebody to race, and that's what their main focus is kind of like what Andy does with his program. Just come, have a good time, race against the best people that you possibly can, learn things, and enjoy yourself at the racetrack.
Hey, and as we had not mentioned, you did mention Rotax. He's still got grand finals tickets up for grabs as well. So it's not like the Rotax guys won't have any place to or any reason to come and run the Can-Am. Those tickets to the grand finals in Portimao, Portugal, still up for grabs in Can-Am this year. And I think that shows his still commitment to trying to support the Rotax program, at least give his customers the opportunity to get to Portugal for Team USA or Team Canada, depending on who wins.
Well, yeah, the numbers are still there in the junior and senior categories. We saw that at the challenge up in the Pacific Northwest. There's still a lot of junior and senior Rotax racers up there. And with those tickets on the line, you can be sure that the best of the best are going to be there at the Can-Am.
You know, you mentioned the Briggs LO206, like Andy Saisman adding it to the Challenge of the Americas this year. Of course, Mike's had the LO206 in the Can-Am for a couple of years. People love coming out and playing, and you see some of the guys that come out at his events. It's like a who's who of ex-Super Nationals winners and top drivers who are now tuners who come and play in the 206. We move on to our Operation Grassroots segment of this edition of the Debrief. David, out of the box, first off, you and I both had a chance to get behind the wheel to start the season already, doing a little Briggs LO206 racing, or 206 as they're now calling it. I got a chance to race at Cal Speed with the Tri-C Carters. Had an absolute blast running the VLK, or the VLR chassis. Had a great time with the guys at Cal Speed Karting, the CSK team. I'd never got a chance to race on that track before at Cal Speed, and I loved it, man. We ran the Sportivo layout. It was fantastic. I ran in the spec class with that new chassis, the VLR, and we had a blast. And I know we got you on board one of Rollison's Tony karts at Phoenix. You got a chance to get out there and have some fun as well. It's just good to get back behind the wheel.
The Briggs Racing is the ultimate grassroots program. I mean, the level of competition that you can have in the Briggs class, you can have, like you said, former Super Nationals winners against somebody who's been racing 3 days, and you can put them all together out on the racetrack together, because it's all about the driver. It's not about which engine package we have together. It's just clean cut, great racing, and racing with the Rollison group. It was a great time. The Phoenix track it's a very difficult track to drive.
You've never been there before. You've never been on that track before either.
No, I've never been there before. I've seen it many, many times. I've just never seen it behind the wheel. It's a different perspective. Just like anywhere else you go, it's always a different perspective. And it boils down to, again, I can't blame the cart. I can't blame the engine. I can only blame the big nut behind the wheel, and that would be me.
Hey, you had some great laps. You had a couple offs. Nothing wrong with that. You're using all the racetrack. I was impressed.
Well, from what I've been told, I got to stop using all of the racetracks. So I'll just do that.
Keep it between the edges, buddy. The Briggs Weekly Racing Series just, I think, wrapped up their deadline. A big push near the end of the deadline to get more clubs to sign on, and they actually have more than they had last year. So not a significant increase in the number of tracks that signed on to be part of that program. But it's big. It's you and I, David, we keep talking about our support of this 206 program, how it's kind of pressing the reset button on grassroots and club racing. You and I have both raced with engines right out of the box. I did it at the Canadian Grand Nationals. I did it at Rock Island, pulled an engine right out of the box on the cart. I think I was 6th at Rock Island, and I finished 5th at the Grand Nationals. The beauty of that is you pull that engine out, you put it on, you race. And I think that this club program, this weekly racing series, really kind of brings everybody together. I was able to score some points when I raced at Tri-C. That'll be it, because you only score points at your one track for that individual listing. But David, for people to be able to, some guy in New Orleans to be able to race against the guy in Alberta or a guy in California or wherever it may be, just such a great program put on by Briggs.
Well, and that's part of it. It's bragging rights. That's kind of the fun thing about racing. You always want to be one up on somebody. And you may have a friend, like you said, somebody in New Orleans may have a friend in the Pacific Northwest, or somebody in California may have a friend that lives on the East Coast. And, it just kind of brings a little bit of bragging rights, but it also, Briggs provides this amazing prize package that gives back to not only the tracks, but to the racers themselves. And, a guy on $1,000 budget could go home with $1,000 generator. I mean, what's better than that?
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's just such a good program. And I think one of the things we're going to see, and I said they were able to get a good number of new tracks signed on this year, but we're seeing this engine just explode. I think Tri-C-Karters in Southern California is a really good example, because at one point they were 35 to 40 entries, and now they're pushing 120 because they're just getting so many people jumping on board the 206 program. They have the spec program with the VLR chassis. They've got the regular 206 Senior, 206 Junior, and 206 Masters as well, David. We're seeing that a lot of places. The barrier of entry has been kind of pulled down. It's been easier for people to come racing, and I just think it's just getting people back out to the racetrack.
Well, that's the main goal of I think the Briggs program, is bringing people to the racetrack, because they can start off here with the Briggs program and move on to faster and quicker engine packages, but just bringing more people into the sport. That's kind of Briggs' focus right now with this 206 engine package over since they've developed it. And we're seeing a lot more teams, a lot more kart shops realizing this, and now developing their own entry-level programs to get people on the racetrack, because it's hard to take a new person who has never raced before into an X30 or Rotax or Rock engine and be quick. It takes time. It takes time to develop yourself behind the wheel. I mean, I'm what, 20 some years into it. I'm still developing as a driver. You know,
we always are.
You always are, and so I think that's what the 206 package allows you to do. It helps you to teach new drivers how to develop as a racer. And
you know what? I'll tell you, one of my favorite parts that I'm seeing right now is a program like the Margay Ignite program, where for $39.95 you have a brand new go-kart and you're going racing, and you're in a spec program. Nobody else has got anything that you don't have. You know, Dave, you've run the last two Ignite challenges at the Rock Island Grand Prix. You know that the guy beside you's got exactly the same equipment. It was less than $4,000, and you're out there racing in an amazingly great go-kart with a great engine that's reliable. That's that Margay Ignite program. And it's cool seeing it kind of go into some of the tracks right now, the spec program to tracks. I love what Margay's doing with the Ignite.
Well, yeah, they take it to the next level with the actual spec chassis. Because the 206 program, you can take any kart to get it that will allow your 206 engine to fit on it. Sometimes you have to make modifications, whatever, but get it on a kart and go. With the Margay Ignite program, you are on the, like you said, the exact same package from driver to driver to driver. So what does that mean? It means your performance is based on how you do as a driver. It's not about the special tires. It's not about the special stagger. It's not about, well, his Ackerman's all different than mine. Well, yeah, it's you. Figure out how to drive fast, and you can be at the front.
That's exactly right. And hey, looking at numbers, it's the Newcastle Motorsports Park had their first race of the year, the KRA event, and the numbers that they get in the 206 classes blow me away every time. Another fantastic start to that program, and Newcastle. That place would be a lot of fun, I think, at a 206. I haven't had a chance to drive it there yet, but wow, what numbers to start the season off again.
Indy is a motorsports mecca, and people around that city love racing. And there's no better program to get them started than the 206. And thankfully, through Comet Kart Sales and all the other teams, Adrenaline out of Ohio, a lot of these programs have been able to get people shuffled in, get them on new stuff, and get them out there racing. And a lot of those people racing are former racers that went away from the sport and have come back.
Yeah.
So that's key. That's very key into what they've been able to do. And they tried to do it with the clone package, and it got into engine reliability issues and people trying to go past the limits, and that wasn't really catching on. And then they brought in the 206 engine, and it has exploded. And we see now they have, I believe, 3 different categories with a full bodywork class, a CIK only bodywork class, and now a master's class.
I love it. Now let's go across the country again, all the way to the West Coast. And you talk about the explosion of the 206 and what it's done. The KPX Championship in Northern California got their first race of the year off. Record numbers. This is a program that's really, revitalizing Northern California.
It's the race program to be in Northern California right now. Over 115 entries they had in just Briggs powered carts. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
And again, it's just guys that got together, decided to develop a race series, brought in some sponsors to help fund it, and then just word of mouth, and social media marketing has been able to develop this series into a big program. And it, again, just like what Newcastle is doing at the local level, these guys are bringing in some national guys down to race 206 races against local people who want to get away from their home track and try different racetracks. That's part of regional racing. That's what regional racing really was about when it first was developed years ago, is about taking club drivers to different racetracks and experience different cities, different racetracks, and then racing against different people.
Hey, what about the winner in the senior category at KPX? Jess Peterson, and I believe it's Jess. I think he won that race, did he not?
Yes.
Jess won.
Yes.
And we talk about the fact you don't need a brand new go-kart when it comes to 206 racing. I think he was on a 12-year-old Invader or something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
that's awesome.
You could take any type of kart you have, and you can make it fast. So we've seen it at the national level. You can take the best driver and move them from kart to kart, and he'll figure out a way to make it fast. Well, you can do that with 15, 20-year-old karts. I mean, that's what we do road racing, right?
That's true.
I have a almost 30-year-old kart just sitting up in the rafters. I could get it down, put a Briggs 206 on it, and go race Daytona and Mid-Ohio and all these big, Laguna Seca like they just had in California. You go race these big tracks and just have a ball. And that's, again, that's what karting is all about, having fun.
Karting's a lot about family as well, David. We talked about it, and there's one of the families, legendary families in the sport. There's obviously mourning the passing of one of our legends. We lost Kyle Adkins recently, and I'm told that they're going to have a memorial for Kyle on April the 30th from 10 to 6 p.m. at Adkins Raceway Park. David, you've been around the sport for a long time, and you and your family have. I'm sure you got a couple stories about Kyle. I've got one as well, but man, just an absolute legend in this sport.
Well, he aside from his driving legacy that he was able to develop that before our time, my time and your time in the sport, just seeing him around the paddock was a joy. You could always walk by Kyle and he could be in a bad mood, but he'll give you a smile, and that's one thing that I will certainly miss with his passing. Seeing him in the paddock, either at a WKA race, SCUSA race, or USPKS, it was always great to see him.
When I first started in the sport, I worked for National Kart News. I was their editor at large, and they had sent me to the HPV Pro Invitational. I want to say it was 1997. The HPV Pro Invitational. We were out at Buffalo Bills, the casino and the track in the back parking lot. And I'm covering this race, and I roll in, and the HPV Pro Invitational was a cool deal. They brought all the top HPV drivers in from around the country. They all came in. They all got a motor out of the box. They had a special kind of a T-shirt they put over top of their racing suit with their name and their number and everything on it. And it was the stars of the day. All the big dogs were out there. And I remember looking over and saying, who's this old guy? And it was Kyle Adkins on an Invader. I'm like, who's that old guy over there? Of course, qualifying rolls out. He ends up putting the Invader on the pole. And so I was like, oh, okay. So the old guy's really fast. And he went out and schooled. It was like Jonathan Strom was out there. And there was just a lot of really big guns of the day were racing in that particular event. And he schooled him in qualifying. And at that point, I started doing some research on Kyle Adkins because that was my first ever trip to a kart race in the U.S. This guy had some skills. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you say research, but Google wasn't around back then, so you definitely you kind of had to do what I do and hit the vault with all the karting magazines I have from the from the 70s, and it's funny to see a lot of the old photos of Kyle back in his heyday as a driver, and see him with Lynn Haddock and Scott Pruitt and Lake Speed, Dismore, all those big names. Just it's it's funny to see, but it's definitely a hard time for the family, and I wish all the best for the Adkins family.
Well, there will be a legacy forever in terms of the legend who is Kyle Atkins. Let's wrap up our first episode, David, of Debrief with our Fullerton USA Racing Calendar. Kind of give people an opportunity to know what's coming up within the next month. This weekend, April 22nd, 23rd, the F-Series Gear Up Challenge rolling again. David, they had a fantastic opening round back in March down at GoPro. A lot of great numbers, and they're back at it again this weekend. April 29th, 30th, the following weekend, end of this month, I'm going to be heading to Bermuda. I'm going to the Bermuda Karting Club's Dockyard Grand Prix. I'm going to do a little announcing. I'm going to do a little driving. So you can enjoy yourself up here while I'm in Bermuda, soaking up the sun.
Well, thankfully it's getting warmer now, so I'm not too sad about it. But a lot of people in the Midwest that weekend are going to be in Norway. Norway, Illinois, as we all know, is home to the Concept Haulers Motor Speedway. You got a little first annual Yamaha shootout going on there. The track's developing a little invitational event, trying to bring in some of the top Yamaha racers over there to race a little for money during a club race.
Yeah, they're putting some cash up. They're talking about trying to get about $5,000 up for that Yamaha shootout. I think that's a great idea. I love the Yamaha program. I know you do as well. And it's cool to see them get this one-off event. We'll be looking forward to seeing how that's attended. After that, in fact, I'll be going straight from Bermuda all the way across the continent. David, we're heading to the Spring Nationals, second round of the Superkarts USA Pro Tour in Sonoma, May 5th, 6th, and 7th. That'll be an EKN live event. I'm looking forward to getting back to Sonoma. It's going to be a big one at that track.
Well, this is the location of the first ever Spring Nationals, the first ever Pro Tour event that was held in 2010. So it's gone for full circle now with the Winter Nationals debut in March. Now we're going back to the beginning of the Pro Tour in Sonoma, and there's no other racetrack like Sonoma. It races amazing, and we're going to see some hardcore racing throughout the weekend.
Yeah, on the other end of essentially the budget spectrum, that same weekend in South Bend, Indiana, the LO206 Cup has their opening round. So we'll look forward to seeing how kind of a turnout they get at South Bend. Fast forward one more week, May the 13th, 14th, David, the Championship Enduro Series heading to Gateway.
Road racing at its best, baby, in the Midwest. I mean, come on. There's nothing better. And Gateway's a fast track. It's a kind of a roval because you use part of the oval and then you go into the infield. With the Margay being right there in St. Louis, they're going to have a lot of support there with a lot of Ignite drivers there. So you're going to have a lot of 206 racing going on that weekend, but you're going to have a lot of shifters, a lot of tags, a lot of laydowns. Great combination of a lot of everything.
For sure. Road racing, as you know, is an absolute blast. If you haven't tried it yet, you need to go do it. We obviously talked to a bunch of people that I think either got back to road racing or had never done it before. They went to Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca for their big event, the Corkscrew Nationals. And there were a lot of happy people that will go back road racing again. So if you haven't done it yet, think about heading to Gateway with the Championship Enduro Series. May 21st, 22nd, the busiest weekend in May. The Can-Am Karting Challenge, as we said, gets kicked off at Tri-Cities. David, you'll be down in the Manufacturers Cup race with Xander Clemens and EKN live broadcast at Pit Race in Wampum, the former Beaver Run. LAKC back on track at Cal Speed. San Zero Games Karting Championship in Sonoma on track. The Colorado Karting Tour gets fired up at SBR Motorsports. The Texas Sprint Racing Series is in Denton. And the 206 Cup back in action at Road America. There's a lot of racing going on that weekend.
Yeah, there's no excuse to not be out of it. Well, and again, it's before Memorial Weekend, so everybody's trying to host a race, get the first race of the summer, almost summer season in the books, so that way people can go vacation or even go catch maybe the Indy 500.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the Indy 500. I'm looking forward again being on pit lane with IndyCar Radio. It should be a blast. Last year at the 100th was crazy. They had Fernando Alonso this year, which is amazing. It's the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500 is going to be a lot of fun. But that weekend, if you're a karter and you want to get behind the wheel, KPX Championship running at Fresno, the F-Series at Englishtown, and the Northwest Gold Cup, IKF Region 6 Gold Cup getting started at Snake River Karters in Idaho. David, lots of racing in May. It's essentially spring. I think the winter's finally gone. It hung on for long enough. It's time to go back to racing, I think.
Yeah, the weather here is amazing. The last couple of days, I've been staring at the cart sitting in the garage, trying to figure out.
Get out in it.
Okay.
Go drive somewhere.
Well, the track's not open. It's kind of hard. That's the bad part about Michigan. We need a Newcastle or a GoPro Motorplex or a Sim Raceway right here in Grand Rapids.
That is very true.
But no, the weather's getting warm. Racing's been going nonstop since January. It's been a busy first 4 months of the season, and it's just going to get better and better as we move on.
Yeah, we got a lot of racing coming up, folks. Obviously, David and I will be on track, or on the road, rather, for a couple events in May. As we said, the SCUSA Spring Nationals in Sonoma, the WK Manufacturers Cup. David will be there in Pennsylvania. I've got a bunch of races with the Mazda Road to Indy in between that as well. So it's essentially a 6-weekend run for myself. We do want to thank Fullerton USA for being the sponsor of our racing calendar, to get everybody up to speed on what's happening here at the end of April and through the month of May. But David Cole, 46 minutes, our first episode of the debrief, almost done.
Yeah, it's weird not seeing you and we're talking to each other. I feel like we're just doing a little work thing, but this is a podcast now. It's weird. So we're gonna add a bunch of new things down the line. Have a lot of interviews. We're gonna be able to talk to people and just kind of pop them in here and there during our podcasts. Maybe we'll get some interesting people on board with our program. Maybe some drivers, some kart shop owners. Maybe some mechanics who don't mind talking. That's always a struggle.
Well, the one thing I got to figure out is I need to figure out where the bleep button is on this particular program, so we can, could be some issues.
Well, I mean, we've had the happy hour, right? We'll just have it.
That's true. It was live, and the happy hours were live too.
Yeah, they were. We didn't do any editing. There was no editing. It was just boom, boom, boom. Let's go, baby. But yeah, we'll have to watch that.
It'll be fine. All right. Hey, listen, those of you listening in on our first podcast, thank you so much for doing so. We're excited about this. This is going to be something that we're going to have a lot of fun with. As David said, we're going to get some interviews going. We have a bunch of different show concepts as well to kind of bring you. It won't always be the same. The debrief is going to be that wrap-up. We're going to talk about a couple issues. Probably going to look more back into actually the facts of what has happened in the sport, kind of give you a replay of our top stories that we've been posting on ekartingnews.com. We're going to have some commentary shows. We're going to have some interview shows, like David said. This is just something that we're just getting rolling right now on ekartingnews.com and part of the EKN radio network. It's exciting. It's kind of what we're pushing forward through here in 2017, and we're thrilled that you're all joining us. Folks, on behalf of David Cole, this has been Rob Howden. This has been our first ever EKN Debrief podcast, part of the EKN Radio Network. Thank you so much, and tune in once again.